I want to switch here to the final few moments of the show to discuss what is always a very difficult day, I'm sure, for you, Gary, and for everybody that was a part of that 93 Iowa men's basketball team. And I texted you earlier today, of course, the Big Ten Network replayed the Iowa-Michigan game that was, a little over a week after the tragedy of Chris Street and his death. What do you remember from 29 years ago? How much does that day stand out in your mind 29 years later?
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's been 29 years. My goodness. It's, when this day rolls around, not that you don't think about them a lot even on any other day, but especially when you're watching basketball or watching athletics or whatever, a lot of times it'll pop right into your head. But this day, of course, you'll never forget. It was just an awful time, and it's hard to believe it's 29 years. It's amazing. In some ways it feels like yesterday, but in other ways it's hard to believe he's been gone that long. But he was a wonderful kid. I really feel lucky that I had a chance to know him and coach him, get to know his family. He's a terrific player. He epitomized everything that's great about Iowa and Iowa athletics and Iowa basketball. And he was on a course to be I felt a pro player for a long time, and was the heart and soul of our team, and a really, really fun guy to coach. So there's a lot of times I think about, boy, what kind of player he would have ended up being and how long he would have played in the NBA. And it's a real shame that got cut short.
For some of the younger fans, and I'm one, I wasn't alive in 93, Gary. And there's, I'm sure, a lot of people who are listening here who were not alive or were too young to remember. So kind of describe to our listeners what made Chris so special off the court.
Well, he was just genuine. He was a typical Iowa kid. He loved living life. He had a lot of interests, and he was just genuine and honest and open, and put on no airs. And he loved being a Hawkeye. That's what he wanted to be from probably since he was hardly born. He wanted to be a Hawkeye, so he appreciated the opportunity to be at the school and to play for the Hawks. And so when he went out there, he just gave it everything he got. And yet off the court, he was a good friend and good brother, good son, good teammate. And, I was watching Northwestern play last night. Chris Collins is the coach there. We recruited Chris Collins hard. He was, Doug Collins's son. He's from the suburb of Chicago and ended up being a really good college player. Ended up going to Duke. And when he came on his visit, Chris was his host, and Chris almost got him to come here. Chris Collins will tell you today, it was really, really close. If it had been Duke, he probably would have come. And a big reason for that was in a short period of time, the relationship he forged with him and how well Chris communicated to him what it was like to play for Iowa and be in Iowa City. And he did that with a lot of the recruits that we had. And pretty unique kid. It was, we were really lucky to cross paths.
Do you remember what the locker room was like after the Michigan State game or after the Michigan game? And those, I believe it was a 3-game winning streak right after his passing, and certainly the Michigan game going back home to a packed Carver. Do you remember what the locker room was like after being the Fab Five?
That was the loudest I've ever heard Carver Hawkeye Arena. That place was just unbelievable that day. And Michigan was obviously a really, really talented team. They were ranked in the top 5, I think. They had the Fab Five and on and so forth. The only thing I can really remember is we had the family back in afterwards, and we gave them the game ball. And, it was a pretty emotional time. I give him a lot of credit. I don't know if I could have gone to an arena where my son had played 3 weeks ago and sat in the front row and watched a game like that. But Mike and Patty and the girls were, that's just who they are, and brought it back to the locker room. And it was very emotional and what a phenomenal effort by our team to win those 2 games after what they were been through. It's probably those 2 games are as big a games that I've witnessed in a coaching career, just from all that went on and how we pulled it off.
I think that, again, I didn't know Chris. I don't know Patty and Mike. I know I've had conversations with Don Patterson, who runs into Patty and Mike a lot, and he said the same thing. And they seem like very strong people, and I'm sure that situation made them stronger. But yeah, I was thinking that as they were replaying that game today on BTN, how in the world can you sit there? But they had all of Iowa behind them. They had the whole arena behind them, and obviously sure. You guys. What a moment! And again, you say it all the time, but what a tragedy! But also the career that was lost. And again, the life of a young man who had so much more than basketball is so much more important. But there's no escaping the fact that this kid, like you said, was probably an NBA player.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. That's the direction he was going on. He, his last game was at Duke, and he was the best player on the floor. And there were a lot of pro players on the floor that day. That was you talk about a physical, knock him down, drag it out game. That thing went right down to the end. And we felt after leaving that game that we had a chance to win a national championship with that team. And we took on a team that had won a lot of national championships and battled them right to the end. And we were playing really, really good basketball. And then obviously to lose him and the way we lost him, we were still a pretty good team, but obviously not the same that we were prior to the accident. And that could have been a team that could have done a lot of damage come March, because we were really playing well.
Who recruited Chris? Do you remember, Gary?
I did, but it's everybody recruits. The head coach does does something, and the players do it, and to be honest with you, anybody could have recruited Chris Street to Iowa, because that's where he wanted to go. I mean, the only thing he could have done is not screw it up, which fortunately I didn't do. So, I mean, he literally committed after a camp, his going into his junior year. So there wasn't a whole lot of recruiting going on, other than we found him, discovered him fairly early, and got a chance to see him play, and knew he could play, and got him down to campus. But beyond that, the school is what recruited him. He wanted to be a Hawk, and anybody could have gotten him. Yeah, we played Iowa on January 19th, 20 years after he had died.
Oh, okay.
And that was not an easy game. It was never an easy game for me to go play at Iowa. It's a game I really would prefer not to play, though I'll be honest, I enjoyed beating them. But Iowa played a phenomenal game that day. We knew they were going to be ready. They had a real good team, and it was a 20-year anniversary, and the place was packed and loud, and we had a good team, but they were better that night, and was not an easy game to play, because there was a lot leading up to it concerning the 20 years, but you just gotta, once the ball goes up, it gets a little bit easier. Then you can just kind of focus on the game and try to help out where you can. It's the stuff leading up and the stuff after that make it a little more difficult. They jumped on us. The place was jumping, and we did fight our way back to make it a competitive game. But they were better that day.